What's going on up there? You start wondering, where do we ever get this crazy idea that brains are involved in thinking? Where did it come from? Obviously, it comes from our everyday lives. In our everyday lives, it seems as if the mind and the brain are the same thing. When you get knocked on the head, you don't think very clearly. When you get drunk, you don't think very clearly. It seems very obvious that the state of our brains affects the state of our thinking, our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our desires. And that seems to...
Just like our dreams, in well-made films we tend to accept the reality that is presented on screen, even if that reality pushes the boundaries of its believability.
I guess I thought that the dream space would be all about the visual, but it's more about the feel of it.
It's not that Newton was wrong. It's just that the formulas he was using are a limited case. And when you get to the extreme examples, his formulas no longer work, and you need relativity to make the corrections. In normal everyday life, the corrections that relativity adds don't make much of a difference. And Newtonian's formulas are a good approximation. I think the same thing is going on with the brain and the mind. In our everyday life, assuming that the brain and the mind are the same thing works perfectly fine. It's only when you get to the extreme cases, such as when the brain stops functioning, that you see the analogy breaking down. And brain and mind do not seem to be the same thing.
Only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
I think it goes deeper than just our language. There's a problem in how the culture makes us think that distorts how we describe things. The way we think about things came from the ancient Greeks, and in fact, our system of logic, of how we deal with ideas, is determined by Aristotle's, it's called a twofold system of logic, where things are either true or false. He postulated the law of the excluded middle. Things can't be both true and false. They have to be true or false. And that type of logic leads us to have what we've called mysteries, things we can't explain. So we can choose between trying to reduce them to things we can't explain or saying, it's a mystery, we can't solve it.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
There is a Hindu system of logic that was developed by Nagarjuna, in which there are 4 different types of logical statements. Things can be true, or they can be false, or they can be true and false, or they can be neither true nor false. And all those are logical statements in their system.
We are continuously kept on edge by the uncertainty that the world as we are witnessing it might not be real. Our perception, our beliefs, and even our sense of self. As a result, reality becomes less of an objective given and more of a subjective agreement. It becomes what we believe it to be.
Is a photon a wave or a particle? According to Aristotle, it has to be one or the other. It can't be both. But in other forms of logic, it can be both, or it can be neither. So maybe what science has to do, what scientists have to do, is get beyond our own prejudices and start using not only other languages, but other ways of evaluating the language, other ways of thinking.
You ever have that feeling where you're not sure if you're awake or still dreaming?
Most processes in our universe are time reversible. In other words, the physics works the same way forwards or backwards, which is why you can't tell if I'm playing these videos normally or in reverse. People typically point to entropy as the only exception to this rule. The second law of thermodynamics states that the entropy of a system, or the amount of disorder, always increases with time. But increasing entropy is an emergent property, the result of the motions of many, many particles, which raises the question, can fundamental particles themselves tell the direction of time? The answer, surprisingly, is yes. In particle physics, there are three major symmetries that we're always expected to hold: charge, parity, and time. And to understand what that means, imagine a giant mirror were held up to our universe. And in the mirror, the z direction is reversed and my right hand becomes my left hand, but the laws of physics shouldn't care. I mean, they should work exactly the same way in the mirror world as they do in the regular one, with no preference for left or right-handedness. Or to put it another way, there should be no experiment that you could do that would tell you whether or not you are in the mirror world.
Hey, look at me. You're okay. You're okay. Hey.
Why wouldn't I wake up?
Because there was still some time on the clock. You can't wake up from within the dream unless you die.
She'll need a totem.
What?
And physicists have actually conducted experiments that confirm that certain particles directly break time symmetry. For example, when a pair of quarks are held together by the strong force, there are sometimes two different possible arrangements, and they can switch back and forth between these two arrangements via the weak force. But switching in one direction takes longer than switching back. So if you could make a recording of this event, it would look different if you played the recording forwards than if you played it backwards. And that's exactly what it means to break time symmetry. In certain cases then, fundamental particles can tell the difference between going forwards and backwards in time.
Yeah, so a totem. You need a small object, potentially heavy, something you can have on you all the time that no one else knows.
Like a coin?
No, it needs to be more unique than that. Like, this is a loaded die. I can't let you touch it, that would defeat the purpose. See, only I know the balance and the weight of this particular loaded die. That way when you look at your totem, you know beyond a doubt that you're not in someone else's dream.
I don't know if you can't see what's going on or if you just don't want to.
She'll be back. I've never seen anyone pick it up that quickly before. Reality's not going to be enough for her now.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. You would have every kind of pleasure you could see. And after several nights, you would say, well, that was pretty great. But now let's have a surprise. Let's have a dream which isn't under control. Well, something is going to happen to me that I don't know what it's going to be. Then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. And finally, you would dream where you are now.
And to this day, physicists are still pretty sure that CPT is a real symmetry of the universe. So far, no experiment has found a violation of CPT. In fact, if CPT is violated, we would have to rewrite a lot of the last century's work, because it would mean that special relativity and quantum field theory are both wrong. Okay, so let's say that CPT is a true symmetry. Think about the implications of this. If we know that CP can be violated but CPT cannot, then time symmetry must also be broken. Otherwise, there would be no way for the combined three-way symmetry to be maintained while two of the subsymmetries are broken.
black implies white. Self implies other. Life implies death. You can feel yourself, not as a stranger in the world, not as something here on probation, not as something that has arrived here by fluke, but you can begin to feel your own existence as absolutely fundamental. What you are basically, deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself.
If our reality is dictated by the mind, this means there are constructing forces beyond our conscious presence, as our mind also contains subconscious layers and emotional currents that run deeper than our immediate awareness.
It's my subconscious. Remember, I can't control it.
And this adds a whole new level of vulnerability, for it implies that our reality, and by extension our identity, is susceptible to disruption and manipulation.
Love your life. Perfect your life. Beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. That the fear of death can never enter your heart.
But what do you believe? What do you feel?
Thank you for watching, and much love.